everyone. This is Brad from UFP. The following episode is about Oklahoma medical marijuana, and I just wanted to let you know before we let you listen to that episode, we've got a little bit of Senator James Lankford and his bedroom voice, and he's going to tell us how he feels about State Question 788 before it actually passed last year in Oklahoma. And also, we talk about some different things that we may or may not fully know about. So if you want to help fill in the holes, or you have some suggestions or corrections, or just things you want to answer some questions that we might have, send us a line. It's ufppodcast@gmail.com. It's as easy as that. If you want to find us on Facebook or Twitter, we've got that as well. And thanks for listening.
Our workplaces won't be safer or more productive if more people smoke more marijuana. Our families won't be better if more parents and grandparents smoke more marijuana. Our schools won't be more successful if only more university students are smoking more marijuana. 788's being sold to the state is something to help for medical reasons, but it was written very specifically for recreational access to marijuana. Let's not buy into that, Oklahomans. I'd encourage you to vote no on State Question 788.
What up, everybody? This is the Unidentified Flying Podcast, and it's a little different here this time because Drew's not here, but I'm sitting here with UFP's own medical marijuana correspondent, Will. Will, how are you doing?
Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a blessed day.
You throwing some Chick-fil-A out at us?
Have a blessed time. Hello.
We're going to talk some medical marijuana here, especially in the state of Oklahoma, since it's a new thing. I'm sure you're happy about that, Will.
Very.
Very.
Very much so.
So what do you think we should talk about regarding this subject? Because everything I see about it, it's a lot of, like everything you need to know 101 type of stuff. Like, how does this all work?
Like pot for beginners tutorials kind of thing?
In a way. Yeah, I see a lot of
that.
that.
Never been around it.
And it's not really just pot for beginners. It's navigating the landscape of the Oklahoma medical marijuana stuff. Like, how do you get your card? Yeah, how do you get your card? How does that even work? What are the rules for it?
Okay. So, my understanding is the bill or measure that was voted on by the people, which was 788, it has very open guidelines about qualifying conditions. Basically, it's at the discretion of the prescribing doctor what conditions qualify or could be treated by medical marijuana. So if a person feels that that's something that's helpful to them, they can go to a recommended physician in order to try to acquire a recommendation to get medical marijuana. So in a sense, the impetus or the necessity to go seek out a specific treatment lies in the side of the patient. It's not like you're going to go to your regular doctor one day and they're going to write you a prescription for marijuana because it's been a clandestine thing in our local culture here for so long. So the patient needs to go out and find a physician that's basically willing to write them a recommendation in order to acquire their medical marijuana license and be legal in the state of Oklahoma.
So it's almost like they're seeking it out. We kind of talked about this before the podcast, but especially if you're like a critic of this, that's something you can't really wrap your head around. Like, they think the process is completely backwards. You have a problem that requires marijuana, and only since a doctor says so, then they can give you permission to go, okay, you can go ahead and then use the marijuana for said problem. And so that's why they jump on people a lot, where they see, they're getting caught for having marijuana, but they say, oh, I need to get a card. And they're like, see, what is this? They're going out searching for drugs, basically. Not that I agree with that, but I'm just saying, like, that seems to be the misconception of, like, what it's actually for. I'll to put it in a political slogan. It's not medical.
Oh, okay. You're
Remember
talking
that?
about, yeah. Well, honestly, I'm not in a position to convince anyone who has
No, we're not
already
here to
convinced
convince
themselves
anybody,
of their
you know.
beliefs.
I mean, that's up to you.
If you think marijuana is an evil drug that has absolutely no benefits, I would disagree and say,
Sure,
check out
yeah,
some
and that's
stuff.
its own argument.
Go educate yourself. But
yeah, I would agree as well.
in my personal opinion, I think it is solving two problems at the same time. It's advertised as a medical marijuana bill, which it is. It's providing something that is used as medicine. It has a real medical application. And that's one of the arguments that it is unconstitutionally outlawed or overly restricted, is because I believe there's a certain element in our Constitution that says no substance can be restricted as long as it has like a reasonable medical application, which I think in the modern times anyone could prove.
It's pretty broad.
It's like you could treat all sorts of different issues with this relatively innocuous substance. If we want to get into the morality of drugs and which ones are heavier,
or even a religious
softer
aspect, because that's a whole part of the.
How it's stigmatized. But I mean, look at opioids, right? We're right here in Oklahoma where the opioid trials are going on right now. Like the state is suing several opioid companies for pumping all this stuff out and getting so many people addicted. And so I think the other big part, besides the actual valid medical applications of marijuana, is destigmatizing soft drugs. Something people use recreationally, because the war on drugs was not a good solution for our society. Keep violent people off the street. Keep people who are doing really bad stuff off the street. But people who are using soft drugs don't need to go away behind bars for decades and decades. That's detrimental to our society. And I think a big deal with this whole medical marijuana movement is it's a populist negation of a failed war on drugs and our entire incarceration system.
Pharmaceuticals.
All of it. It's rejection. It's an alternative in many ways to opioids for chronic pain. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but do some reading.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. I won't name any names just to protect people, and plus, it might be people I know, but
no one that you know.
Sure, but say talking about the stigmatization. This is someone who all drugs are bad. They've always been bad, and they've never tried them themselves type of person.
Yeah.
It might lean towards the older demographic. Yeah, okay. Just to put it nicely. They kind of relate the two together. Like, oh, now everyone's got medical marijuana, and we're already having these opioid trials.
That those two things are actually related.
Yeah,
hand
well,
in
it's
hand.
just gonna turn into that problem.
That's gonna be the new.
That's gonna be the new problem. Oh, now everyone's on pot. Which there might be problems and things of that sort.
Which you're right. I mean, it is. I wouldn't say that marijuana is non-habit forming.
Yeah,
I think it can very much be habit forming. But if you stop taking it, you're not going to go through withdrawals and die. And the amount of people who have overdosed on marijuana and died in the history of ever is like zero. So compare that to how many people died from heroin and opioid overdoses in maybe the last week in the United States, and there's no contest. Which is safer at the end of the day for people. There's no question in that regard.
So go through the bit of the process, like how does it work? You say you're already got your card. You kind of already talked about like, hey, you got to go get a prescription from a doctor.
You got to get the recommendation from the doctor, and then you send it into the state, and the state reviews it and approves it and sends you your card. Or if they deny it, you can also have a chance to fix any errors they may have found in your application and then send it back in.
Okay. So that's the whole process of, getting the card. You get it through the mail.
Yeah, you get your doctor's recommendation,
sure.
Then you fill out your form and you send it in to the state.
But now you've got it. You're walking through the door.
You've got your card.
Wherever you can go. And I guess that's the thing, man. There's just like dispensaries everywhere now, and
yeah,
I don't think
everywhere.
that's a big question now. Is like how many of them are gonna like make it? How many are gonna be there next year?
I think I read an article somewhere that said like something like the half of all of Oregon's dispensaries that opened in the first year. Maybe it was of recreational or medical. I don't quite remember. I need to check it out. Yeah. But half of all of them that opened up closed within the first year. So it was like this huge bubble.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to get in, and the bubble just popped. And here in Oklahoma, we're in an interesting position because within the first year of medical, we have had more licenses approved for both cultivators, businesses, and patient licenses, which we're just talking about, than Colorado or Oregon did in 3 years of recreational. So in terms of how many Oklahomans are going out and starting up cannabis-based businesses or going out and getting their cannabis cards, it's like exponentially larger, faster, how much quicker we've been doing it here. So I would expect to see an even greater implosion of this bubble at some point. So
we're all fortune telling in this,
Yeah.
really, because it's like it's so uncharted territory.
yeah,
Especially, well, talking about Oregon, like one of the things I've heard about them is they were growing a lot, or by they I mean just regular people, because like here, what's the rules
patients were
here?
growing.
Patients were you can grow how many plants? What's the rules on that in Oklahoma?
So under 788, it is 6 mature plants per patient and 6 seedling, small cutting-sized plants. So up to 12 plants per patient, but the ones that are actually able to produce flower are 6 plants at a time.
I don't know what Oregon's rules are, but they were having the problem of like so many just regular people, regular patients were growing, and they were just able to supply enough themselves that they
By
didn't
their
really
own
go. You don't need to go to the dispensary as much if you've got you're growing it for yourself. So
well,
it's another thing to think about with the bubble, like or just what will happen.
How much
with
people's
us.
own
like
ability
how much
to produce
how much is
going to
Oklahoma
offset
gonna
it?
Are we all going to grow a lot? Is it going to matter?
We have a longer growing season than Oregon does, I think. I mean, I could be wrong. I know they have like temperate rainforests up there, so maybe they have just as long a growing season in some respects, but I would expect we have a much longer growing season due to our latitude.
That's something to point out. But yeah, back to you got your card, you're walking through the door, and you can go. Are they all usually the same? Like, just how they're? It's just
the dispensaries.
The
is that what you're talking
dispensaries,
about?
like,
yeah. So you go in when I first got my card. I think I went into my first dispensary in like February, and the selection was very limited because under the rules, it's only products that are produced in Oklahoma with cannabis that was grown here in Oklahoma.
So they can't even get out of state weed and sell it
No,
here.
it's not. Okay. It's not legal to ship it back and forth across state lines.
That was another worry.
It has to be grown in Oklahoma and sold in Oklahoma dispensaries through a licensed dispensary.
They're like, make sure you buy, domestic.
Yeah.
Like it was coming from Mexico. I'm like, I don't think it's coming from Mexico.
Well, one concern is, a lot of these businesses are, in a way, like a chain business that has investors from out of state who have taken their business model that works in Colorado or California or another legal, recreational or medicinal state, and they're saying, okay, here, buy into the franchise, which I know there's several brands, like Smokies, which is a cannabis edible, is a brand that is like won a bunch of awards. I'm not sure, I think out in California or somewhere. But these brands are already here in Oklahoma, even though the rules say no out-of-state stuff. They're producing it locally.
They were already established.
Yeah.
Somewhere else. But plus, there's people here.
But the weed's grown here, in Oklahoma.
Okay. But they're all the same. You go in. Do you have to
at the beginning,
scan your card, or how does this all? You gotta. It's just like an ID. Like okay, cool, it works.
Yeah. Well, let me start at the beginning. Back in February when I first got my card going in, the selection was very limited because there wasn't any supply. All the cultivators had started very recently, and so there's just a few products you could choose from. But it's improved a lot, and now there's a ton of different products in the stores. And as we know, everyone's seen on the street corner, there's dispensaries everywhere. So selection has really improved. But you go in, you've got your card that the state sent to you, take it in the dispensary, they scan it. They've got your information down in their system because all this is tracked electronically.
So they do scan it?
Yeah, they scan it. So they have like a register of the patient.
Okay.
And this is all tracked
collecting data
by our state government.
Yeah. Just saying.
And
like
then
it's a little weird to me. I'm like, it's like it's really cool that you can get medical marijuana and do the whole process and do what you're about to describe. Just go in and do a dispensary. But it's also like I got your name down. I'm just saying. I had to be the weirdo about it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, you're in the system.
Yeah, sure. But you're in the system. Okay, but anyway.
When you go into a liquor store and you buy alcohol, you show them your state-issued driver's license.
Yeah, but they don't scan it.
True. It's a little less regulated in certain respects. In Colorado, the approval for the recreational law was based around treating marijuana just the same way as alcohol is already treated.
Sure.
And so it's like, basically we're going to use these same premises to govern it. But even if you go to a dispensary there with a medical card, they're going to check your medical card. Though you also have the option as a legal adult just to walk into a recreational dispensary and show them your driver's license. So it's under in recreational states, it's obviously a lot more relaxed than a medicinal state.
Okay. But anyway, you go about describing.
Yeah, you go and you can check out the products. There's a lot of just all sorts of different oils, and you can buy the actual flower that is pot itself. You can buy extracts like what people would call hash. There's different kinds of oils that you can vaporize and stuff. There's all different kinds of edibles. So
vape pens
like
are big.
baked goods and things that already have THC and other cannabinoids infused in them, and all kinds of different things like that.
But just it kind of depends on the place you go to that has what. They might have more.
I haven't been to a ton of places, but most of them have a kind of just a general selection of different stuff. Yeah. There's even like beverages now. I saw one place that had, it was like a CBD cold brew coffee nitro caffeinated. Crazy, I don't know. It looked kind of good. I didn't buy it, but it looked interesting.
It looked. You wanted to try it.
I would try it.
You would try it and be like, this is not worth it.
I love caffeine, so.
Well, that's true. I could probably get into that. But there's just like there's a huge amount of shit you can buy. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like I said, it varies
somebody showed me a bath bomb the other day. I have no idea why you'd want to put THC in your bath water, but somebody's doing it, I guess.
Does that work?
I have no idea.
I have no idea either. Yeah, I've never done that.
Maybe.
I'm sure there's probably a difference between, like, say, a dispensary in Oklahoma City, like in a metro area, but there's ones out in small towns, right? In Oklahoma, you know?
Yeah.
So
I've driven through a lot. It seems like a lot of the small towns at least have one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if it's like, the only one, especially me being from a small town out there in the middle of nowhere, it's like, it's there, but it's like, is it as good as certain other places?
Yeah, I don't know. I think obviously it's going to vary from place to just like a restaurant or anything else.
Sure.
Who's got the good stuff and who's got the good deals?
That's a thing I wanted to talk to you about too. Where there's a lot of these things popping up where like they want to do like reviews, and
there's
you
see
a lot of like
I think it's like a Yelp
news articles, but they're actually just advertisements. Where like I saw one that was talking about it was someplace here in Norman, and they were going to be the first one taking cards. And because you're supposed to not really be able to because
you mean credit cards like debit cards and stuff?
Yeah, because they're not supposed to be able to use like the banking.
Most
system.
banks won't recognize it because it's still federally illegal.
Sure, but the whole point was like you saw a lot of people just like bullshit because there's a lot of places that take cards. I'm guessing they're probably using like maybe Square or PayPal. Maybe.
A lot of dispensaries that are using.
I don't know. That's what I was saying. Like there was a lot of people saying like they can use cards at a lot.
I know there's places that have it's like just essentially the same as using an ATM.
Okay.
It's just a cash transfer system. So like you go to an ATM, put your card, and get some cash out. It's like if you hand them a card, at least at some of the places I've been to, it's just the same as that going on. But they take the cash out, and even has like a surcharge. So it's not the same type of card transaction, I don't think, unless I'm mistaken.
Other than like this one in a small town sucks versus this one maybe in the like Oklahoma City or Tulsa or whatever. How is it like worth reviewing? Like all these different places, like is it that varied? Like I was saying, there's these things popping up that want to review. Oh, this place has this strain. This place has certain type of cookies, whatever. I could think of a million things, but is it really like worth digging into? Like, or are there that many different strains at different places? Because like I'm sure some places like only have like 5, but some place might have 20. I don't know.
The major differences I've personally noticed in the handful of dispensaries I've been have been some are vertically integrated. That means they are a business that both cultivates the cannabis and has a dispensary license to sell it at one of their locations. And so they'll have a preference for their own in-house products. So they won't have necessarily as wide a variety as some of the people who are just running a dispensary, who can get their products from any of the cultivators or processors, which is a separate business license altogether. So you're going to be able to get a wider variety generally, I think, in the non-vertically integrated ones.
What's that license you're talking about? Like, what's that all that involved? That's just you're
So
just a grower? Or?
As to get into like the business of medical marijuana, there's 3 different license types. There's cultivator, processor, and owning a dispensary. And so they're all treated slightly differently. I think they all have like the same licensing cost to the state, but a cultivator can grow the actual plants and sell them to a dispensary to then be sold to patients. The processor is the one that can actually take the cannabis flower and process it into extracts or infuse it into edibles. And that has to be overseen more carefully to make sure there's not like solvents getting into these. I think the Department of Health is overseeing that to make sure that the products we're getting in Oklahoma now are like completely free.
You don't want bad stuff getting baked into the cookies.
Because to extract these, you need to use some like heavy duty solvents and stuff. But if it's done properly, there's like absolutely no residual traces of this, and that's what they're selling in the stores now, because it is regulated by the health department, just like all sorts of other industries in the state.
Yeah, it's just crazy that you can, walk down the street and go to the store.
Yeah. It's pretty nice.
yeah, happens all the time now. Yeah, I wonder like how many different, but like really unique strains are out there, like between all these businesses
in Oklahoma
and just dispensaries, because like I'm this certain dispensary. You want to be
like,
hey, we got this strain, y'all. This is the shit.
You're just kind of dubious about the idea of these like review which dispensaries.
Well, no, I'm not
which
dubious.
one
I'm just
should
like
I go to?
I'm curious, like how much is there, like, and especially between all these different places, if they're going to be having different strains, are they going to be able to have so much variety? Are they all going to like condense down to like, oh, there's the 3 we all agree upon, this is worth it, the other stuff's just shit, or a gimmick or whatever, but who knows? I mean, there's a lot of strains out there.
Yeah, there's like 2,000 or something, I think.
So
different names.
It just, I guess it's, how much people buy into which place you want to go to.
Yeah.
Or do they care? Like, this is the closest one and the best one I've found. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, I guess that varies to each person. Some people are probably more in the fancy themselves connoisseurs, whereas other people are more just into the convenience.
Are you? Which one are you? Both?
I'd probably put myself more in the line of convenience.
Yeah.
Personally, the selection in your average place, like a decent store you'll find in the metro area, is good enough. You're not going to need to look really far. If you find a place that's near to where you live and has a good selection, it's probably not a huge need to go across town.
I'm interested in that.
There's only so many people making these products in the state.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
There's
like the innovation,
I don't think there's a huge
that people are going to come
variety.
up with here. I want to see that.
Oh yeah, what comes out of Oklahoma specifically?
Yeah,
we'll have to keep an eye on it. See what happens.
That's where I like where the reviews would be in. Like, hey, this is some original homegrown shit here. Yeah. Check it out.
I think there's already some people who have tried to put some Oklahoma names on different strains of bud, like Sooner Bud or something. I think there's some stuff out there. There's already very Oklahoma themed weed things happening. These like websites that are like Yelp for weed, right? Reviews of different.
Oh yeah,
I think there's a place called Weed Maps. It's like that, right?
Yeah, I was thinking of. I was actually didn't even think of that because there's apps and.
Yeah, I've never actually used one like that, but I noticed you're very curious about that.
Yeah,
I'm not really the right person to ask. I guess you're just wondering how useful of a service is it?
It actually is. Yeah.
Like, I mean, do you think something like that exists for liquor stores?
I have no idea because I don't.
It's kind of like Yelp, right? It's like the same thing as a Yelp.
And I don't get into that whole scene, so I don't really know much about it or if that type of thing
maybe we shouldn't talk about this because we both don't know anything about it.
That's how it works here on this podcast, man.
Yeah, but maybe we should try to use one.
Oh, that's the thing. Like, it's all user driven, right? user review driven. So if you used it, I guess you could submit a review on some of these. I think that's how it works. And, based on however many reviews and how many stars people give it, then go, oh, I'll get the White Widow here and try
like
it
the
out.
different strains.
Yeah, whatever it is.
That's going to be difficult because some people will definitely prefer certain strains. They'll find things they like, but consistency batch to batch, maybe even with the same grower, can be a little bit different. Somebody who's like really got their process down is going to have great consistency and a recognizable product, but some of these newer cultivators, like not everybody in the state who started up a cultivation business necessarily has a ton of experience beforehand. And so there's not a lot of new people getting into the business. You're going to see some quality shift. So I think one of the most important things that I personally recommend when going into a dispensary for buying bud is to check out the smell. The smell is super important because you might have a really great, awesome quality looking product, grew a super healthy plant, big resin-filled flowers, but the curing process is just equally as important. So if that gets messed up, it's not going to have that awesome nose to it, like pine, scents, or lemon, whatever characteristics that phenotype has.
The same way.
Yeah, it's not going to be as good. So if you open up a jar and the smell just doesn't hit you in the face, or it smells like fresh cut grass for some reason, it's a bad sign. Because the grass smell means that the chlorophyll in the plant was degenerating and decomposing inside of it, and it wasn't cured properly. And it gives it like a harsh, grassy flavor, not a smooth medicinal product. The kind of quality you'd expect to get from a dispensary.
It's not a process that you can speed up. Like it takes time.
Everybody does it a little differently, but it's like cooking. I would say it's, on that same art. People have different recipes to get to the same end, but you need to put in some care and consistency at the end to really, the curing process is very important. And when a lot of people getting into the business, because there's a lot of uncertainty about, how long the price of weed is going to stay high on the market, and it's going to be a good time to get a return on your investment in starting a business. People are really just trying to get a high turnover rate, produce as much as they can, as quickly as they can. And that means speeding up processes in places where quality should be an important consideration too. But it's easy to tell who's got the quality product and who doesn't. It should look good, it should smell good, and when you take it home and test it out, it should have an awesome effect.
It was a bit of the Wild West at first.
Yeah, quality, I've noticed even today, I mean, it can be a little all over, like a little over the map. Some places I've noticed overall have good quality, and other places just kind of, it seems like they're just going with the most bargain stuff they can get their hands on, which...
That's something to talk about where, there's a lot of people that opened up a shop and they know nothing about this stuff. Mm-hmm. They're just getting into it for the first time. And not that they're not good, but there might be some who aren't. And that might be the reason. They're just there trying to run a business like anybody else. But it's new to them. Just like it's new to a lot of people. And that kind of goes back into the confusion part of it where... Especially if you weren't, there's a lot of people who were against it for sure, but they're kind of curious.
They want to know more about it.
Yeah, like what is all this? Oh,
this
rules
isn't
about
the podcast
this.
Episode for them. No peeking.
No peeking.
This is confidential material.
Could be, but that's what they're trying to figure out. Like, well, I heard you can do this, or I heard you can do that, and then there's a lot of just wild speculation.
It would be good if we had a list of some of those wild speculation, like things people commented on the internet. Are there any comments anywhere or anything you could pull up, and we could address them with our infinite wisdom?
Well, I mean, we could start with the big main one. Like the whole argument was, it's not medical.
It's not medical.
Not medical. That was the kind of
the
people who wanted no on 788.
That's completely false. 100% false. Cannabis has been used as a medicinal plant for thousands of years. There's no arguing its medicinal
maybe
purposes.
They're just talking about it in the scope of the law.
Of what we passed,
You're just trying to pass this law just to get around so you can just smoke dope.
Okay, this would be my response. That is 100% correct.
And
the war on drugs failed. We've got insane incarceration rates, private prisons. I think the female incarceration rate in the state of Oklahoma is like one of the highest in the country, if not the world. We have a serious problem. Putting people in jail for smoking pot is the problem. People who think like that are the problem, not people who want to smoke pot. In my opinion.
That's a worry with, like children. The edibles. That's where I will actually, even when Colorado legalized, I was like, I'll give you some ground on that. It's like gummy bears, and kids are gonna like that.
I agree though. I agree with that. That's a valid concern.
But
I think having them in child-proof containers.
Sure.
I'm not sure. Like there's a lot of laws that have been passed. Think about the tobacco industry, for example.
Okay.
Making it so they can't market specifically at kids with like flavors, and like the vape industry has gotten a lot of blowback for like trying to appeal to younger people through flavors and stuff. And that's been a big argument. So I guess people are gonna fall on two sides of that, one way or the other. Like,
Sure.
We have a responsibility as a society to protect children from harmful substances, or just like marketing to them specifically, and also we have a right as like a laissez-faire capitalist society, just open market, winner takes all situation. In my opinion, the edible thing is kind of risky. It's kind of on the edge in consumables.
And I guess that just depends on really what kind of edible.
That's the danger. I mean, it looks like candy if it's left out by someone who's irresponsible, because these are everyday people who are going to be using cannabis.
Yeah.
We're not talking like everyone who has a card isn't going to be some.
Or you could be making some pumpkin bread.
Exactly. Accidents happen. Kids can get into it. One thing I will say is it's a lot less dangerous if some kid accidentally gets into it than like prescription drugs that you could get from a pharmaceutical company.
Or even alcohol.
Too much aspirin
would
would do a lot more damage to your kid than them getting the gummies on accident. But that's why we do have child-proof containers on everything. Like the packages for the gummies, they're not easy to get in. You have to like open the top of the flap, find a smaller flap, grab that, pull it apart from the main flap, and then kind of like pull it apart. And it requires some force. So unless the kid's getting out scissors and going after it, it's not going to be a problem. But maybe if you have some kids who are curious, don't keep edible gummies and your cannabis out where they can find it. Be responsible.
Yeah. And that's, they say a lot of money goes for those types of programs. Like, some is supposed to go to the school, isn't it?
I'm not sure how the money's all.
Well, I do know that it's just like the lottery in that I think most of it goes to like the general fund. So it doesn't actually it's not like, extras going to the
doesn't have
school.
A specific goal.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, well, they get the extra money, but whether the school actually gets the extra money.
Yeah, what the state decides to do with that money.
Legislators, yes.
Oh, I like that. You seem to have some insight there. What the people are saying.
Yeah, well, I mean,
the opposite side.
There's,
they must be heard.
People have got moms and dads. That's enough you need. I don't know about this, and that's kind of what it
we should
boils
get
down
some of these
to.
mom or dad on the line.
There's some people who are just hardcore against it, and that's one thing too.
People who are sort of cautious onlookers.
Yes,
is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Spectators.
Yeah. Supposedly this is just a new fad, and we're kind of checking it out.
Well, I guess
the new Oklahoma.
They've
I've
got
seen
time
that before.
to figure it out.
Yeah, I've seen someone the new Oklahoma, and someone respond to them, and it ain't pretty, because they're against it. Okay, fair enough.
You could go to any point in history, and someone's got a problem with what's going on.
Sure.
In their day and age, in their place.
Yeah.
For different reason.
I'll say this: it is a new Oklahoma. I mean, just the fact that
very true.
I'm still like, I can't believe it. I still just can't compared to 5 years ago.
Yeah, it seems
people say 10, 15. No, like a couple of years ago. It's just a radical change.
It is. Things seem to have become much more modern in our quaint little state over the past few years.
Hey, quaint. What are you talking about? Yeah, it is what it is.
I remember when I was in high school, Main Street, Norman, there was just it was antique stores and a couple of 3-2 beer bars.
Yeah.
And now there's restaurants, all kinds of stuff, tattoo shops and sushi bars, and they're doing all kinds of stuff. They shut it down for the art walk now on the second Friday of the month. Tons of people walking down there, food trucks, events. You can get free wine and go and do events. Norm Music Fest is the country's largest free music festival, and that started back in 2009. Speaking just from the perspective of Norman, man, we've come a long way in the past decade. You can buy refrigerated beer
Yeah.
in your liquor store or at a grocery store now.
Yeah. We have almost come up to the 20th century.
Oh, I know what we didn't talk about, dude. You got to edit this one in. This is an important talking point. Am I on mute? No, I'm good.
No, you're good.
We decriminalized marijuana also in the state of Oklahoma. I don't know if this was concurrent with 788 or this was separate. But if someone is caught by the law and they have, I think it's an ounce or less of marijuana, and they're not a medical marijuana patient, if they can claim a medical condition under the law, the state constitution, the charges will be dropped to a fine. They won't be arrested, and it's like a fine with like a maximum penalty of like $400, I think.
Mm-hmm.
If you can just claim a medical condition, that means you don't have to be a medical card holder. But if you get caught by law enforcement with some pot, instead of going to jail,
yes,
you can do that. You can say, "I have a medical condition," and they won't take you to jail. So that's an example of decriminalization. Which
that's something that happened recently. There was a LivePD. Everyone loves to watch that, and it was in Oklahoma City, and somebody was getting pulled over, and he had a bag of seeds. That was it, and the cop was like, yeah, the basic gist of what she meant was just, this is sketchy and I don't like it.
Yeah.
And she started like just kind of riffing because she didn't know to a T, like, I just think you're not supposed to have this, so we're just going to take it away from you. And, I don't think you get arrested, but...
Oh, they just confiscated it? That was
they
all?
confiscated his seeds, and supposedly, like an article I saw, it was about, he may get them back,
Wow.
But she was taking his card. He had a medical marijuana card, and she was reading off of the back of it, going,
wait, he had a medical card and she confiscated his seeds?
Yes, this was the problem with it.
Well,
so
that's not on the up and up.
Yeah, so that... Exactly. So she's reading off the back of the card, and it says, you can have up to, like you've said before, 6 plants.
Yeah, there's like no limit on how many seeds.
And she's like, see there,
that's
6 plants. You've got this huge bag of seeds
she was
here.
Counting trying to count the seeds.
Sure, that's another reason.
That's not how the law works.
Yeah, there's all sorts of reasons to just, I'm going to take this shit, and it's mine now, and shame. I don't,
Interesting. He had seeds, and she was confused by that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, law enforcement needs training. I mean, these laws change, and there's a lot of laws out there they need to know.
There was people who were just, downright outraged, which is totally justified.
Well,
and there's some people who are just like, she's fucking trying her best. I get it, but just, he didn't. Before, his ass is fucking in jail.
Yeah. That might have been a felony or something. I don't know. What the charge would have been for seeds.
Shit, probably in Oklahoma.
They probably would have slapped him with like intent to cultivate or some crazy like, you're going away for 25 years, buddy.
You were within 20 miles of a church. And
you have 20 seeds in a little Ziploc.
There's another charge.
You're going away for good time, for good.
Yeah, but
well, that's the thing, man.
Do you want to trust?
There's a lot of ins and outs to the law. How are we going to expect law enforcement to know? I mean, they need to know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Are you going to trust?
Complicated.
Whenever you get pulled over, is it going to go down?
I wouldn't,
to
man.
I
think there's even stuff out there saying like, legal advisors, like attorneys, saying, you still want to try to pass under the radar as much as you can. Don't be throwing smoke in people's faces and
sure. And I don't think you should be doing that anyway. It's just like DUI, smoking while you're driving.
It's treated just the same as alcohol for purposes of DUI. So smoking and driving is a no-no in the state of Oklahoma.
But just as far as like you're carrying, I can't. That's another thing. Like, how much can you carry? I think you can carry like 3 ounces on you personally.
There's 3 ounces of flour and a few ounces of edibles, a few more ounces of concentrates. A little mixture of different things.
I'm sure it's different if you're like a distributor. There's all sorts of like, you've got to have like an unmarked vehicle. I've seen that.
You have to have like a tracking device in your vehicle that's monitored by like the drug enforcement team of the Oklahoma, what is it, the OSBI? They've got like a special unit that is just tracking vehicles that belong to cultivators and stuff like that. Because, if anything's sketchy, like they're heading out of state, or some stuff goes down, there might be like, question mark, what's going on over here? it has to be, for purposes of transportation, it has to be like locked inside an unmarked container. Or maybe it was marked. I can't remember. It was either unmarked or had to be marked medical cannabis. It was very specific.
Yeah, but the vehicle has to be unmarked because you don't want to be like, hey, we're transporting pot.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so watch out for that.
Yeah, it's still very much a cash-on-hand business, which is sketchy until banking gets set up,
Yeah. There's
Anytime you
that's
have
a debate. There's
lots
people
of cash.
for and against that, nationally here, because now Oklahoma's got its, medical marijuana industry, and people are going to be, just the same way. I'm still against it. That's how a lot of the, elected people for like U.S. senator and representative from here still think about it. They're like, don't want it.
There's no accounting for some people's taste.
Yeah. Well, is what it is. I wonder how much, is there a lot of farms like out in rural Oklahoma? I
think that's where all the large scale production's happening.
Really?
You got your indoor places set up for sure, but I think all that what I would venture to say, most of the stuff you see that's going into use as like these CBD places, or your concentrates that are then going to be processed down into edibles or smokable concentrates, that's being grown in bulk in large scale outdoor operations. At least it is now, with the outdoor season having been going on for a while. Prior to that, they had to grow indoor because of our climate and in greenhouses. But I think going forward, you're going to see all that concentrate bulk stuff is grown in outdoor facilities, and indoor facilities focus more on higher end boutique quality buds.
So I guess that's an important point. Like, we haven't even been through growing season outdoor yet.
No, you can use different I think you can use different techniques to get a shorter season, use auto flowering strains, blah blah blah. Some people probably have been producing from outdoors already, and that might be in our dispensaries already, but I would guess that the vast majority of flower and products that have been sold in dispensaries in the past few months have been grown indoor.
Cool. I think that's really where it ends as far as where all this has started. I mean, there's a lot for it to go.
You don't want to get in like the philosophical, the deeper questions, the whole situation.
Yeah.
Why
ahead.
It's good, why it's maybe bad, what's going to change, has changed.
Sure.
What's going to change again? Well, Brad, I don't have all these answers, but if you want to hear, tune in next time to Unidentified Flying Podcast. Over and out.